Hi, I think I'll say, well, hello there, as we got used to from Paul last year. Lovely to have you all with us this morning. We're recording this on a lovely evening just before Easter. The bird song is wonderful. Creation is really waking up, and our Maker is just reminding us so powerfully that He is control of everything. My guests this evening have many stories to tell. And we've just been discussing before we started recording on how we were going to set it up. But I've invited Keith and Anne Melrose, who are friends of Liz and Joe's, to come and talk about the various things that they're involved with. So much work for the Lord in their lives. But also Keith is a volunteer ranger, National Forest, New Forest Ranger. I'm not even going to try and explain what you guys do because I've written down here, I've got an A4 sheet covered in notes that I made when I was talking to you. But Keith and Anne, thanks very much for joining us. Would you like to sort of tell us something about your story? Keith, can you just give us a little bit of a heads up on what a ranger does, and then talk about your work in the community with people? Then perhaps we can move on, Anne, to hear all the various things that you're doing, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, hello. Everyone. Keith Melrose, yes, I've been retired probably just over 2 years now from JP Morgan, and before I retired I wanted to get involved with volunteering, so through a friend I got to know about volunteer rangers role in the forest. And just to fill you in with a few bits of information, because at the moment it's closed, that we haven't been working during lockdown, but to tell you a little bit about the role that it was, and I think it's going to change slightly starting in this summer. The group of volunteers is roughly about 70 to 80 people. Most of the people, if not all of them, are of retirement age. And we get involved in various sort of roles, such as we man the public areas at Boulderwood, the Deer Sanctuary, the Reptile Centre, Blackwater Arboretum, around those areas on a shift. So we will do something like from 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock during the day, meeting the public, trying to help them to enjoy their visit to the forest, answering their questions, pointing things out which they may not know. So that's quite a public-facing side, hence during lockdown we weren't able to do that. Other shifts that we do, and you're required to do something like 3 or 4 minimum a month throughout the year. The conservation tasks which we do start in October, run through to March, because that's when the birds aren't nesting and we can actually get into the forest. We cut down seedlings that have been dropped. We're clearing edges to rides to improve the flow for small wildflowers, to try and encourage butterflies. So we actually are trying to recreate those routes through the forest for the butterflies. And that's quite popular because we use lots of public volunteers to do that, and anyone can get involved.
So that's brilliant. So it's an environmental job, really, as much as shepherding the people. Thanks. So, Anne, I wonder if I could switch you. That's great. I mean, that sounds really lovely. It sounds a lovely outdoor thing to be doing, that Keith. But I know there's other things you want to talk about in a minute there. And I was very interested. You're involved with the ping pong group, etc., but also Ringwood Recovery group. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the ping pong, and also the recovery group, because I think that really sort of resonated with me when you could you explain a bit about both those organisations for us?
Well, yes, of course. And we, just as a background, we've lived in Ringwood all our married life. Right. And we both are very much community-based people and just want to get involved with whatever seems an opening or a need. And that's where I've fitted right through, really, even when the children were small. Just in a season of a time, you know, I see a need and maybe think, oh, I could do that. And the ping pong really started because I'm involved and I work for Greyfriars Community Centre. And I've always called that my secular church because it's run in a very similar way, very reliant on volunteers with an executive and trustees, etc. We're a charity that we don't get any direct funding. And so back in the 2012, when the Olympics obviously were on in the UK, and I think resulting from that, really, the government particularly were very keen for people to start being involved in some sort of activity and exercise, and seeing the benefit for older people to do that. And I remember an email came into the office from someone in New Forest District Council, and to actually say that there was grants available for anyone doing like a table tennis. And there was this particular video that was, I think it was called Ping Pong Gold or something like that. Yeah. And it was sort of scenarios of different 5 maybe people all around the world, it wasn't just UK, that were of a certain age group, and they would play ping pong. And they found
a certain age group. I know what you mean, Anne. It's okay.
Yeah, some of them had played table tennis from a young age. I remember one of the ladies in this particular video, she had never played before, and she was in a care home, and they encouraged her to start playing, and it was amazing how she became quite more sociable, and it was an activity. So they tried to promote this. So I thought, well, we've got an activity centre at Greyfriars. I could probably get hold of a couple of tables, and this particular person helped as well in starting it. So that was back in 2013, and the group thrived.
Really?
I had all sorts of interesting, lovely people, and it's all ages. It doesn't have to be older, but I think, mainly they've got more time on their hands, or did have more time on their hands. So it tended to be, say, mainly over 50s, I suppose, the majority. And I've had all sorts of people. Can I tell one story?
Yeah, please do.
I had well, they've all been lovely, but a particularly lovely man. And he wasn't a very well man, I have to say, but he used to love coming along. Anyway, he did have a fall, and it's awful, but there have been sort of laughs over the fact that they get so excited going for shots and then they fall over. And I'm invariably then having to call a paramedic out, because obviously it can be, you're not sure if they've hit their head or whatever. And this particular man, he had a fall. So but it did result, sadly, not as this fall, but he did have an issue of heart. And it wasn't that month or so after he died. Oh. Now, the reason I'm saying is because I went to his funeral, and it was in a little church in Ellingham, and it was quite packed. I sat at the back, and so because I sat at the back, I was one of the last out. And the wife and people were there, and she shook my hand and she said, "Oh, I don't recognise you." The funny thing in the service, when they give talk about their lives, people's lives, it was referred to the fact that he'd had a fall playing ping pong. So I feeling mortified. Here I am, and when I went out and she shook my hand, she said, I said, "No, I'm the person that organised to run the ping pong." And I said, "I'm really sorry." And she said, "No problem." She said he was such an accident prone person. She said, "It was not your fault. He loved coming to your group."
That's a lovely story.
That is
a lovely story. Can we come back to rough sleepers in a minute? And Keith, I know you're involved with with your recovering addicts. Keith, you're involved with rough sleepers in Bournemouth. I mean, obviously, I presume that's through your connection with Bournemouth through JPM, I guess. But can you tell us a bit about the work that you do there, please?
Yeah. It's nothing to do with JP Morgan, actually. I just happened to go to a church service, actually, in
Right.
Bournemouth, which is it was to kick off Sleep Safe. I don't know whether you've heard of Sleep Safe.
No.
That's about.
But I might have seen. Yeah, go on. You explain about it. Yeah.
There's many churches in Bournemouth that open their doors in the winter and they allow rough sleepers to sleep inside the church.
All right.
It's all controlled and organised, and each church does 1 week. So you do 1 week, and then another church does another week, all the way through the winter.
That's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is. It starts in October, and I went to the service, and I really was challenged by. I wanted to get involved. Yes, I'm doing volunteer ranging, but that's not. That's only a few days a month, and that's really enjoyable. But they had a carpentry workshop, and I love DIY, and I thought this is right up my street. So I volunteered probably 2 years ago now, and we run a workshop 3 days a week, and we have trainees. So these are people that they have been given somewhere to live. They must have an address. They must have somewhere. It might be supported living, shared accommodation, but they have somewhere. They're registered, and they come to us, and we teach them life skills, skills with machines, manual lifting, health and safety, and we allow them to make things. And it is wonderful to see these people who are just sitting in a room all day long, frightened to go out because of all the dealers and all the people that are around, the temptations. Yeah. But they come to the workshop, and it's a wonderful haven for them, and they just want to keep coming back. And we make all sorts of stuff, and that goes to a shop called the Doorstop Shop in Bournemouth.
Right.
And they sell the products, which is reinvested in the workshop. And it's a wonderful thing. It was actually called Second Half Workshop because it's like a football match, whereas the first half really is when someone has been addicted, they're struggling, they're maybe sleeping rough, but then there's half time, and they can get a manager's talk. And this is where God comes in. So God says, okay, you have got a second half to your football match. Here we go. So we see it as like this is their second half. So they're given a new start. They're supported by FaithWorks, and we try and get them into because even just by coming to us, they get a record of attendance, and that does a wonderful thing for someone who wants to employ someone who's been homeless for many years. You know, all of a sudden he's got a record of attendance. We can give a report on how they behave. Obviously, if they learn all the skills, they can do an NVQ with us, and we can get them on to maybe jobs in the building industry.
That's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
So because unfortunately, it's not just about getting the homeless people into a home, it's giving them something to do, because that they're really bored and they'll actually slip backwards.
Right.
Yeah. So it's challenging because you're working with people who maybe you've never really met in your working career or your life.
Yeah. So there's actually quite a lot of parallels in what you're both involved in, because Anne, I think that your Ringwood Recovery Group, is that correct? You're involved with? Would you like to tell us something about that? I mean, this is a whistle-stop tour of what are two incredibly generous and giving and busy lives with both of you. But we've got just this period of time just to hear something of what you're doing and some of these things that are going on. Can you tell us a bit about Ringwood Recovery Group then, Anne, please?
Well, again, that is under the umbrella of FaithWorks, and an email came through the churches together in Ringwood, actually, saying that they wanted to put on this group in Ringwood, so make it available for people that were more local rather than just the Bournemouth area. And I thought, well, it's possibly something I could do. So I replied and applied, and the course actually started. It's a 12-week or 12 steps. It follows the 12 steps course. So that is, and it's very similar to like the AA and other groups like that. So it is for people recovering from an addiction, and the material is it's right from the word go that they talk about, that it is Christian based. The 12 Steps course talks about a higher power, but it is explained that our higher power is the Christian God. Right. And so we follow that Christian faith. And it starts each week. So the 12 weeks has started back in September, but it's still going on, because although the course finished, they still need supporting. Right. So then what happened was the fact that lockdown came, and although we did carry on for a while in a church, it became not so easy. So because of my involvement with Greyfriars as a community centre, and because we kept being able to be open for vulnerable and support groups, we've held it there. So every Thursday evening, I go along and help with this particular group. And it's we meet together, the men and the female, male and female, and then we split into groups when we discuss and talk or listen, as the case may be.
And would these people be people from varying sort of backgrounds, or are they all? I mean, presumably they're not rough sleepers, or have got what sort of backgrounds do they come from?
They've got lots of background issues. I mean, there is drugs, obviously drug addiction, which is from a lot of issues in the background, and family and abuse. So also another addiction is food compulsion. So it is a mix. And I think very similar to what Keith was saying, that they just need that constant support and mentoring, really. And it's quite a learning curve for me. I've not been an addict, however. My parents were very much involved with a Christian drug rehabilitation centre back in Yeldle, which is near Maidenhead, Berkshire. And so I've been used to the people that they've worked with, and also they've given a home to as a sort of halfway house when they've come to rehab. So I've been involved, and I also have said on occasions, even within the group, because the initial bit is you go round and you just say something about yourself and your struggles, and that I've said that really there, but for the grace of God go I, because I've had quite a few rebellious years in my young 20s, so I've got quite a testimony with there, really. And we're seeing how it goes. I don't know how it will go.
It's nice that the people who are coming have kept coming. Quite often, just like with the workshop, is people come, have a taster, and then maybe it's too heavy for them, or they get tempted to go elsewhere. But you've had a consistent group. Yes, right the way through.
They want to start another group. They want to start another course, I should say, maybe May time, probably when it will be easier to do that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's 3 females and 1 male, and I think they've created that sort of bonding that they're almost saying, I don't know if we want anyone else to join.
You're doing too good a job then, aren't you? Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how it goes on. But
what's also been eye-opening is that we can think of Bournemouth, and we can think of some of the struggles for people, homeless and that kind of thing. Yeah. But you wouldn't necessarily associate that in Ringwood or where you live, and you open the doors and people come in, and it's quite surprising what's on your doorstep.
And I'm learning as well, because, you know, I wouldn't necessarily know how accessible and easy it is to get hold of drugs in Ringwood. Yeah, I know people who tell me it's as easy as anything. So it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's an education in itself, then, Anne, isn't it, for you?
It is an education. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just looking at the work, and obviously, Keith, you're involved with the rough sleepers, you're involved with the carpentry product, etc. With rough sleeping, I mean, often people point towards Bournemouth. Now, is there a particular problem in Bournemouth? Is it worse than some other of the cities around, or you know, is it just because we are relatively close, we're more aware of it?
Yes, I think that's true. I think because we're a holiday resort, you know, a place where it's quite nice. If you're going to sleep rough somewhere, sleep in a nice place. You know, you know, we've got people in my workshop from the Midlands, from up north, from London,
right?
And some of them are actually pushed down here as part of their, you know, the conditions. Maybe they're ex-prisoners.
Right.
And they actually like Bournemouth because it is, it's a nice place, really, and I think they're attracted to it. I don't think we're quite effective. I think there's some good groups, good charities working with the homeless. You know, the Soup Kitchen, St Mungo's, Faith Works. There's a lot of people working with the homeless in Bournemouth, but I don't think it's any worse than anywhere else.
Yeah.
But I think people come because it's such a nice place. I mean, I spoke to a guy today. He's out of prison 6 months, and he wants to live down here for the rest of his life. You know, and he doesn't want to go back up north to Middlesbrough.
Well, and the weather. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah.
You know, really, we live in a very for climate around the UK, in one of the best climates, don't we, in the country? So if you're going to sleep outside, why don't you go to a place where it's a bit warmer?
Absolutely. I mean, Keith, you've just opened something up. Reverend Paul Cowley was our guest just in the new year. Paul gives his testimony on the Alpha course. If you've seen Alpha, you've seen. And Paul spoke to us. And I mean, there again, we're talking homeless, rough sleeping, all the problems they have. These are real people in need, and it's wonderful what you're doing. But one of the things that Paul told us at the time was that something like 10% of the prison population is ex-service people. And you know, the tragedies all around. And I was just sort of wondering the sort of the stories, you went on to it a little bit there, but the stories of how people get into these situations, and what we as churches, you know, where we are, we're in a rather sort of rural area, but what we can do to support and help these outreaches.
Yeah, I think I've not found one person with a similar story to another person.
No.
We shouldn't lump these people in.
No, they're all individuals with problems.
Exactly. The only thing they've got in common is they haven't got anywhere to live. They've lost their identity.
Somewhere they've had a rough deal along the way.
Exactly. It could be family. It could be prison. It could be you know, we've got people from other countries that don't have any family here. They're just on their own, and they lose their money or whatever. But it is their lives are quite in a turmoil. It's very difficult. There's no easy way out. You know, it sounds very good that we can just put them on this ladder and move them up the ladder, and they're back to normal again. There's no easy way out. They've got so much baggage. Yet, yes, they may have been involved in drugs. Yes, they might have been involved in crime, and those things are very difficult to release yourself from. You know, there's a lot of temptation, a lot of attraction. As soon as you have a struggle, like someone can just say, well, I've got a chap today. He's been moved from one house to another house. He's on prescription, so he has to get pills from the doctors, but they haven't moved his medical documents to a new surgery,
and
the new surgery wants some ID from him, and he doesn't have any ID apart from a bank card. And you start thinking, well, this is ridiculous. You know, all the problems are massive problems to them. To us, they're quite small problems, but these people have giant hurdles to cross every single day,
and they are damaged goods. They are, yeah. And if alcohol has fueled their addictions or whatever over the years, and the damage that's caused even mentally, you know, that's certainly part. The mental health is not good.
It's and you say, what can we do? You know, obviously try and give them some time. That's the best thing you can do, because a lot of their relationships, we've just done the well-being course at our church, you know, and a lot of their relationships, what I'd call a chronic relationship. In other words, the only people that want to get to know them is people who want to damage them or take something from them. So it's a very negative kind of, so all the people around them are quite negative. So their well-being is very poor. But if you can give them time, just give them some time, just listen to them. You don't have to give them money. You know, you can just give them some time and ask them how they're getting on, or, you know, and to build up a relationship, even if you see that person again the next week or the next few days, you know, call them by their name. Say, hi, Dave, how are you? You know, are you any better than the last time I saw you? You know, just give them some time, because then you're giving them a relationship that's positive. You know, and we have to invest our time, and we've all got plenty of that. And I know some people say, well, I'm a bit scared. That's true, you know, that they don't look such an inviting person, you know, but believe me, they are lovely when you start to talk to them. And I've not met any, and I met one chap for the first time 2 weeks ago, and it's amazing when he after knowing him a couple of weeks, when he told me that he was in prison for violent behaviour, and, you know, you start thinking, oh, wow, you know, if I'd have known that 2 weeks ago, I might not have been quite so flippant with you, you know, so, yeah. Does that help? Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is human. This is. I mean, let's face it. We're going back to hands and feet of Jesus, and we've had a number of people speaking about what they're doing. And I always refer it back, and I always think you are, both of you, and those who are working with the hands and feet of Jesus. You're out there actually doing what our Lord commands us to do, which is a wonderful thing. Just sort of looking results. And with your sort of work that you're doing, particularly with your addiction, your people with addiction, etc., are you encouraged by the way that it's running? You were saying that you've got a lovely little group and they want to keep together. I'm just looking at really whether you now see the Lord really working in this way, and have you seen the Lord working in the lives of these people?
They're very open, so that's
all that matters, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And actually, two of them who are involved have been doing this wellbeing course, which is great. Now, we mentioned that. I don't know if you know about it. Do you?
No, I think I vaguely heard of it, but why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
It's run by a chap called Dave Smith. He wrote the book during lockdown last April, and it's on the well-being. He's a Christian, he's a pastor, and it looks at physical well-being, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, relational well-being, and vocational well-being.
And the financial.
And financial, sorry, yeah.
Right,
So it looks at the 6 kind of elements of your life, and from Scripture, and it's over 50 days. You can just read a couple of pages every day, 50 days, and it can be done in home groups. We're doing it in our home group, so it's been very. I think it's been at this time, because of lockdown. I think it's been really relevant.
There's a short video that you see for each of the sessions, And there's two quite youngish presenters, aren't there? One is Simon, I can't remember the surname. He once was a Sky Sports presenter, and
the Christian guy lost his wife. Yeah.
He lost his wife, and so there's himself, and there's another girl.
Yeah. They're just
Rachel,
presenters of it, but it's done very.
But it's
modern,
done, and they interview different people on these different aspects. So it's quite an attractively well put together study for non-Christians as well as Christians.
Yeah.
So it's been, and we've done it as a Churches Together in Ringwood, part of the Lent sort of programme. And each church within Ringwood has done a particular day. So we've done it as home group, but they've also, the churches have done it. So different people have been logging on. Well, it could be anyone going on because that's
you've been doing it on. Obviously, you've been doing it online.
Yeah.
And that's been the a beauty of online, that anyone from wherever in the country can just suddenly tap in.
I know. I mean, online is incredible. I mean, people are fed up probably hearing me saying about it, but we have got a lovely lot of people, and it's lovely having you with us, who probably don't come and won't come to our church, but are joining in and joining us now, and it's so thrilling. It's just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So, sort of just looking then, you've got. Sorry, Keith, you were going.
I was going to say, would you like me to talk about the other work I do? The other.
I think that would be yeah. Please do.
And that's been going much longer now. That's probably more like 6 years. A couple in our church started this Acts for Sharing, it's called. It's based in Ringwood, but it covers approximately, we go as far as 20 miles from Ringwood. So we go out to Southampton, Shaftesbury, Salisbury, Wimborne, and it's a charity, Christian charity, run on the basis of Acts 4 in the Bible, very much to supply the needs of people who have nothing. And we get referrals from social services, from churches, from organisations, charities, of people that they've maybe been in a hotel, bed and breakfast, they might have been in a women's safe house, and they're given somewhere to live. They've been given a place of safety, but they have nothing. They've got no money, no bed, no settee, no chairs, no cooker, no washing machine, anything like that. So our charity is to provide them with some of the basics. And we go out and as Christians, and we meet these people in some very, very, very humbling places that they have to live in. And we give them a Bible. We always ask whether we can pray for them. And I've never been refused yet of someone who wouldn't want prayer. Yeah. And that's a wonderful thing with some of the people, even some of the rough sleepers, they are really happy to receive prayer. And it's been wonderful to stand on the streets outside their house, praying with them, and to see them sometimes welling up and patting you on the back and saying, thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. And we do that as part of a charity. We also run the clothing bank and a bedding bank as well. So when lockdown's finished, we have a warehouse in Ringwood, which we allow people to come down to. So if they've been referred, they'll come to us and they can choose what clothes, children's clothes, baby clothes, or bedding, and that kind of thing. And we built a garden. It's right by the river in Ringwood. We built a little away also for people who, especially in Ringwood, that don't have anywhere nice to sit. Maybe they're in the flats and they haven't got a garden. They can come down, they can sit by the river. We'll make them a coffee and chat to them and listen to them. So we're trying to meet as many needs as we can. And since lockdown, last March, in the first 6 months of lockdown, we did more. We gave more to people than we did in the previous year.
Really?
So we're doing double the amount of work.
It's caused a lot of hardship, hasn't it? It really has.
But
So where do you get your goods from then? That you're
just donations, people to word of mouth. We do house clearances sometimes.
So you will accept house clearance as long as it's got the kite marks and all the various things on it then?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, some of the places I have to go to are very small, so yes. We can't take too large furniture. Struggling upstairs with settees sometimes is very difficult. But yeah, God's very good, because sometimes we have a list of people wanting washing machines, and we'll pray about it, and we'll maybe put a note in the church bulletin, and amazingly, washing machines come flying into the place, and out they go. They don't stay very long. Washing machines, fridges, beds especially. It's amazing how our warehouse is only small, but it's constantly being turned over. So as it goes out. Yeah. So that's been, again, it fits in well with the other work. I mean, for 30 odd years, I never worked in the community. I just worked in a bank and in Bournemouth. But now I'm working with people, and it's so, what's the word? Satisfying.
You ran a youth group, though, didn't you? We used to get involved at church, even though
But what I'm saying is that when you expose yourself to working with people who have nothing, it's addictive in a nice way.
I think we'll take that. When you expose yourself to people working with people who have nothing, it's addictive. That is a wonderful tagline to hang your story on. I think both of you. I know that we could go on talking because you are so interesting and you've got so much to talk about. But I asked you originally, and I know that you sort of felt a bit of horror about it, to just give us sort of a bit of a heads up on generally what you're doing. It really has been so interesting. You've opened up all sorts of thoughts. You've opened up areas that you're working in. Lovely to meet you both. Thank you both so much for giving us the time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I shall, from ping pong, because when we originally spoke, Anne, and you said something about your ping pong group, and I was thinking that it was something, well, I didn't know really what, but it wasn't quite. It didn't turn out to be quite what I thought it might have been, and I think it's a wonderful story. And the widow of the gentleman, what a lovely lady. And wasn't it wonderful that you were able to give him that pleasure in those last weeks? Both of you, thank you so much. Wonderful work that you're doing. So interesting speaking to you. And I really do thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Chris.
Well done, Tim. Thank you.